Yo guys, what is going on? It is Invin here, and today what I am bringing to you all is a video on the May PTR Update 4, which is the latest release, as you can see, an hour ago here, of the PTR patch notes, and in essence, what we will be seeing come into the live servers, of course, with the May update. Now, this one has, again, some big changes, just quickly going over what we can expect to see. We've got 3v3 arena changes, we've got a few general fixes and mechanical fixes, etc. Then we've seen some more changes to the weapons, specifically looking at the bow and also the life staff. We also then have some progression and PvP track specifically type stuff to cover, as well as some rewards and loot. So yeah, some pretty juicy stuff in this one. It's quite a decently sized, decently proportioned kind of piece for a 4th edition of notes. So they are clearly working on feedback strongly, and that is a really good sign. What I'm going to do is go into this, break down basically the overall picture of what's happened in each situation for you guys, so you can get the lowdown and the latest on that, so you can stay up to date. But I'm not going to go over every single thing nuance by nuance. Some stuff I will point out the specifics of if it's relevant, but other stuff I'm just going to summarize. So I will leave the link to the notes in the description if you do want to go ahead and look through each of them for yourself. But other than that, guys, before we jump into it, if you haven't already done so, make sure you drop in a subscribe to the channel with the notification bell on. It massively helps to support me, so I'd really appreciate it. And if you do go on to enjoy the video and you like me covering the brand new news and such like that, please do drop me a like, as well as, again, it also really helps to support the channel, so I'd much appreciate that one as well. And without further ado, let's jump into this. So the first thing, like I said, we're looking at the 3 versus 3 PvP arenas. Now, this one, what they've done is kind of fixed up a lot of the remaining outliers, little things that were going wrong. So, like, for example, they've fixed the timers, they've fixed players remaining silent when they leave the instance, so you get silenced in the initial waiting area or indeed in the spectating booth. That was sometimes persisting out of there, you had to relog. Stuff like that has been fixed up generally across here. But what you will see is they've added a reference to the health regeneration provided by the foods. So obviously that's usually the stat boosting foods. That's interesting. And they've also added a tooltip for the arena player button that displays the level bracket that the player will queue for. This is really important, especially if people are playing at lower levels than 60. So you can see what level range you would be playing in. Of course, if you are someone that's coming back to the game or someone who's starting a new character to level, obviously from level 20 onwards, you can just do the arena. This will actually tell you the bracket you're in now, so that is a nice little addition. They've also here adjusted the duration of tier 3 and tier 4 3v3 attribute food to be consistent with tier 5 3v3. So basically you'll have the same duration on there, which is fair enough. Not the same stat boost, but the same duration. They've corrected a few issues, again, across the board, but main one here, they've fixed being able to queue for both OPR and 3v3 arenas at the same time. I didn't know if that was a bug when it was initially first in there, but it is, so you can only queue for one or the other now, which does make a lot more sense. And they've also, you know, made sure that you can only queue as a 3, which is a lot better. Now, they've also changed it so that the PvP rewards screen correctly shows the PvP rewards at the end of the match, so you can actually see what you're getting from it. And basically, the global idle crowd will sound echoey / distant when the player is spectating, and the crowd chants during the 30-second countdown, leading to the ring of fire at the end of the match, rather than the loudness that we were seeing before, which is a nice little ambient effect, which I think a lot of people will like. And of course, the ring of fire now properly called out in the player's defeat notifications, so if you get killed by the ring of fire, it will tell you. Now, we've seen a few also general changes here, but I'm going to skip past these. We're just going to look at this last one particularly, which is a fixed an issue where various ranged attacks or AoE attacks could unintentionally get backstab criticals, such as Flamethrower, Incinerate, Shockwave, Path of Destiny, and Sticky Bomb. This is really important because obviously with some of the new PvP perks, one of them is literally about backstabs, so you are going to actually have to go and get a backstab now. Any of you cheeky players that were trying to find ways around it, no longer going to work. Dodge mechanics, this is a big one. They've fixed an issue where the dodge distances were unintentionally being reduced when players were not slowed. So some things were affecting the distance of the dodge. That has now been remedied, so you should see consistency throughout, which is a big thing, particularly in the PvP world. Then we've looked at perks here, just a couple of basic fixes, but mainly the Insatiable Gravity Well perk was triggering damage when other weapons were unsheathed if the perk was slotted into armor. So essentially it was making damage come from different weapons that it shouldn't have been. Now obviously that won't be happening. Now this is a big juicy section. We're on to the weapons here. So firstly, the Blunderbuss has had a simple fix where they've fixed an issue where the pellets would not fire when cancelling an ability with a primary attack when aim down sights was active. A lot of people have been asking about this, so that is something really good that they've changed there, and I think a lot of people will be happy with that. Slight animation cancel ability, which will just make sure that you can actually primary attack, which is great. Then we've moved on to changes with the bow. So the first thing here, they've fixed an issue where you could instantly fire penetrating shot or poison shot at the same time as the charged bow shot. So now you will have to do those in sequence rather than all at one time, which of course was causing some big one-shot potential. They've also reduced the base block stamina damage of the bow depending on the tier from 34 to 42 to 32 to 40. So 2 down at either end there, so you see a base reduction of 2 less stamina damage. Then you'll see reduced bow's charge shot stamina damage coefficient by 38% and bow's evade shot stamina damage coefficient by 75%, as well as the bow's evade shot knockback upgrade stamina damage coefficient by 40%. So essentially what they're doing is reducing the stamina damage it will do. In other words, it's going to be less effective versus tanks with some of those abilities. However, the other abilities remain untouched. It's just that these were a little bit too good at causing stamina damage and of course getting rid of those blocks, meaning sword and shield was less useful than it should have been versus the bows. So that's now been changed. We should see that going to full fruition, and tanks will have an ability, or the capability at least, to try and close the gap there and drop some CC without being instantly staggered. We're then looking at the fire stuff then. This one is where they have fixed an issue with the flamethrower that could be inadvertently cancelled when strafing while a haste buff was active. Also, they fixed an issue where when you were using the flamethrower, you could kind of go up or down surfaces and it would cancel it. That's been gone. They've also reduced the flamethrower's block stamina damage by 85%. So a lot of stuff there with the flamethrower, but also that second one there where different terrain would affect it. Things like Pillar of Fire was affected by this too, so that now won't be cancelled, which is nice. And finally here then on the weapons section, the life staff. Life staff have added group mode indicator to the group HUD to display the current state of group mode targeted healing option. In other words, is it toggled on or off? You'll now be able to see, which is great. They've also fixed an issue where targeted healing out of range highlight was not functioning when activating target lock with MMW or target hotkeys. So now if a target is out of range, you should properly see that function. And also finally with the life staff, targeted healing spells are now limited by line of sight except in expeditions. So again, if you're out of line of sight, you will have to gain line of sight in order to do targeted healing in PvP. Super important for the arena and really important for things like wars and OPRs, because if you don't get those heals off, it's going to be a big problem. So that's why less targeted AoE heals probably in the larger scale PvP is something we might see. I do like the exception for PvE. I think that's really good because of course that isn't against other players. It's just against the mobs, so a little bit of a keeping it the same there for consistency purposes is of course great. Now we've seen a few changes here to the economy and progression, generally some visual fixes, that kind of thing, and they've lowered the glow on the mutation weapon, stuff like that, nothing too major. But the PvP track we've seen a big update to. So firstly, of course, the items on the PvP track have had their perk buckets significantly improved for PvP. Now you will actually get stuff that is useful for PvP, which is really good, and also some of the named items on the track have had their perk spreads changed to be more useful. So that's really good. They've updated it to actually be PvP based, because a lot of the stuff that was on there was kind of like, yeah, not that good, you know, no weapon perks. So I'll have to go back and have a look at that for a future video, but it is looking like we could be seeing some much better rewards. The named weapons no longer have Mortal Empower, they have Keenly Empowered. Much better. These are actually going to be really good now, because obviously Mortal Empower is when you kill something, you get that empowerment. Keenly Empowered is from a critical, which is much more common and actually is much more beneficial, making these again a lot better than they were before. The named accessories have been changed so that their legendary perk is a PvP perk where applicable, and their perks have been changed to be better. So again, I'll have to go into this in another video and have a look through these, but these have been updated hugely to make them much more beneficial, and that seems to be the case throughout here. They've also named heavy armor no longer rolls with siege ward and rolls with shirking heals instead. That is a huge update, because a lot of people were saying, well, if you did want to tank, siege ward is basically not effective in the game at the moment. It's really a terrible perk. Shirking heals, however, is very, very decent. Whether it's going to be good with heavy because it is about dodging attacks and things, I think it is still going to be useful, maybe not as much. However, you are looking to see more constitution on heavy players generally as a rule of thumb, so maybe this could actually be more beneficial if the dodging timing is got right and it was almost like a heavy CC that was getting used to dodging. Could be very, very good indeed. Now, you'll also see that PvP reward track items should now be significantly more likely to roll a PvP-focused perk spreads. Generally, that's across the board for all of them, like we've just kind of covered. It's on everything, which is great. They've also fixed a few bugs where they were getting different rewards that weren't supposed to be there. Also, they've changed it so that if group members leave, for example, the arenas, you will still get your PvP rewards for that match, which is down the bottom here. And also, tier 5 items from the PvP reward track are now guaranteed at purple rarity, or of course epic rarity, which means that usually you can upgrade these if you've got your expertise up there if it drops at the right level, which is great. Again, something that we definitely want. Now, rewards and loot specifically then, they have disabled the ability to drag umbral shards, gems, or repair kits directly from storage onto equipped items. Basically, was causing some stuff to disappear. That's now been eliminated for the time being. They've fixed issues with loot bags. They've fixed issues where players could deposit items into a loot bag that was about to disappear and it kind of got rid of stuff. And then generally cleaned up a couple of other things there. Trade skills, again, they've fixed up some stuff with gathering. And the same with expeditions. They've basically fixed issues and bugs where players couldn't respawn or AIs would sometimes ignore players. Both those things fixed for expeditions, so you should see a more consistent approach. And finally, down the bottom here, then we've seen they've fixed an issue with some connection type stuff. Connection error messages, quick shot consumable cooldowns, and usability indicators should now appear as intended. That's of course mainly for the PvP arenas with the reusable potions and cooldowns on those, and also the correct attributes are now displayed when viewing a weapon to equip in the inventory. And of course finally, just a Gallop Immo SFX audio levels have been lowered for everyone but the local player, so everybody else is not going to hear the gallop that you're parading around town with. That is just going to be for yourself to enjoy more than everybody else, except from, of course, they're still going to hear it just at a lot less of a volume than it was. So like I said, they're pretty big, pretty juicy notes, some really good changes for the weapons. Not sure about the life stuff still. I still think that needs a little bit of reworking in my opinion. I don't think what they've done there changes it all too much, but the bow stuff is really, really good, and I do like the way that they've changed the fire staff. I also like the fact that they've changed a lot of the stuff in 3v3 arenas. A lot of the things they have changed here we've seen as focused community feedback, so they really are looking at that, which is fantastic. And the PvP track improvements are massively needed, and that is going to be crucial to the success and the enjoyment of the PvP tracks, and of course in turn the arena, OPR, wars, and open world PvP to encourage that stuff to earn it. So now it should actually be good. If you do want to find out what the changes were and what they're actually going to be now, stay tuned to the channel, as I will have a video coming on that in the next couple of days, because that is going to be really important. It's going to mean that these items are a lot better, so that's really, really cool. But other than that, guys, that is going to be it for today's video. If you have enjoyed, please do drop me a subscribe and a like down below if you haven't already done so, and I will catch you again very, very shortly with another upload. Thank you for your time, thank you for watching, and peace.